What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Michigan. Look at all of this snow we're getting. We actually just got a decent amount of snow last night, so I was able to plow that. Anyway, today we're going to work on the frame. I'm very excited about this video. I'm also very nervous about this video. I'm super excited about this because I've been wanting to restore this truck for a couple years now, and now we kind of forced to do that. I'm having some rust spots, and we need to get those rust spots taken care of. It is snowing out here, and the materials that I bought were actually raw metals, so I'm actually going to be taking my truck over to my neighbor's house, who's also going to help me with welding the stuff in. So these cross members that are rusted, they have to be, two of them have to be cut out and re-welded new ones in, and I don't know how to weld. I've welded one time in my life and it didn't go very well, so I'm going to have a professional do it. That also makes me nervous because it's something I've never done before. It's kind of a big job, and that's actually what this channel is designed for. It's designed for people who don't know what they're doing, who would like to learn how to do that. Alright, I'm going to show you guys some of these parts here. I'll leave a link in the description for all the parts, the tools, like I normally do. These parts are super high quality. I'm very excited about that. So not getting paid to say that. I actually don't still get paid for being on YouTube, but that's not a big deal. It's just a hobby. Either way, let me show you guys these parts. Now these cross members are from Safety Cap, and it's a company out in Rhode Island. They have phenomenal reviews, and I can see why. This metal here is incredibly strong. Comes with everything you need. This is actually the back one. I can take it out here, the box here in a little second, or in a minute, but this is the one for the rear that actually holds your spare tire in there. That's one of the ones that are rotted, and then here are the other two. So I'm pretty excited to get those in there. This one here on the right goes actually right by the cab above your fuel tank, and then the one over here on the left hand side is the one on the back side that holds the shock absorber above the fuel tank. So it's starting to rot and rust right here on that. So that's the reason why we want this. So these two both have to be cut out and then welded back in, and that's the reason why I'm bringing it over to my neighbor's house. And then this one actually you take out, and then you can see the slots right here. They actually get cut out. Oh, so let me show you. You actually drill the factory rivets out and then put new bolts in and put that in there. So we're going to do all that, and as you can see, everything is pretty rusted in here. Did paint everything on the frame just to kind of keep it looking nice, but it doesn't look pretty. And then here's the non-deceiving part. You can see that it's pretty rusted. I actually got to get a new one of these because I can't get it to move. So it goes moving in and out, but this mechanism's completely rusted or broken, whatever the case may be. But they don't give you a new one, which is alright, so I'll get a new one of those later on. But as you can see, everything else is kind of rusted here. There's the part that is actually starting to rust out that I need to replace, one of the cross members, the one that holds the shock absorber. This spot right here is starting to develop holes right there on the underside. And then same with up here. This one's starting to get pretty rusty, and as you can see, the whole frame is all rusty too. So we're going to get all those in there, and we're going to kind of restore this frame up a little bit. And then on top of that, I got a B&W fifth wheel turnover ball gooseneck hitch, and that is pretty rusty. I'll show you that here in a second. Surprisingly, this hitch weighs twice as those two boxes right there, just for the frame cross members, and they're pretty heavy. This box alone was 78 pounds. So a lot of weight going in there, and you can see that this is pretty rusty as well. I'll show the underside here in a second, but that's pretty rusty. This thing is already hard enough to move in and out, and this stuff is all flaking out and it's starting to bend right here. And then there's the gooseneck hitch. The one that we will be replacing will be a B&W, and that is also pretty rusty. So those bolts will probably have to get drilled out, but that's okay because we got an all new set of everything. And as you can see, the passenger side is already even worse. This stuff's starting to flake out, and I don't even know if that's part of it or if that's just some of the undercoating that the dealership threw on there to make this truck look nice when I first bought it. So we're gonna get it all out of there. Just look how packed the backs of this is. This is just insane, guys. That's just packed full of parts and tools and everything I think that I'm gonna need. Either way, I've got about a half a mile driveway. You can kind of see that right here. And then his driveway is just as long, so I don't want to keep walking back and forth. All right, and before I head over there, I just want to give you guys a little small disclaimer to respect my neighbor's privacy, his garage and all the stuff like that. I don't know how much I am going to film over there. However, the truck will be over there for about a week. They're going on vacation, and he's going to help me get the cross members in there, and then we are going to finish the rest of it while he's on vacation. So a little bit of some of the install part probably won't get videoed, but like I said, you know, I like to respect people's privacy. So I'm gonna head on over there. Let's get started. All right, first two in. So not too bad. So basically what you guys have to do is there'll be a bolt right here, and then there is a factory rivet. You just got to drill that out, and that's how this whole piece comes out. There's actually some new plates, and you got to figure out with what type of truck you have. If it's like a extended cab, long box, short box, stuff like that, you got to figure out which notches you need on the plate itself, and then draw them out, and that's how you figure out where this one right here, that plate comes right in there installed. And then so you basically push that in there, and this thing slides through the hole that's already in there. You cut this whole brace out, and then you beat out the 3-inch hole that was already there, or the 3-inch pipe that was already there. And then they give you a plate right here to center this thing. They give you a plate right here as well to center this thing. And then if we walk over to the other side of the truck, same deal. We got a plate right here. And like I said, I wish I could have videoed it, but unfortunately I want to respect my neighbor's wishes. And either way, we're going to clean up some of that frame right here. And we're going to paint this whole thing. Next thing we're going to tackle is getting this one installed. But we're going to clean up some of all this up here first real quick, because I would like to put this back into place. I do have new hangers for it and new bolts for it, so it should all come in and everything shouldn't be super rusty. So I'm going to get out grinding away. You can see that this frame is not super good. There's a lot of scale everywhere, so I have all intentions of cleaning that all up, making it look nice. Same with right here. But once this plate comes in there, we're going to put the 5th wheel hitch back on, and I'll be able to video all of that. So I'm going to get out grinding this thing, and we'll meet you back in the middle. Alright, now before I put this piece on, I'm going to actually paint this, because there's some of the stuff like right here on the sides and some of the corners that I can't really get to. You actually have to screw this one all in. So this is actually sitting in upside down, I believe. Nope, this is actually sitting exactly how it's going to go into the truck. So as you can see, this right here, we got that whole outlet right there, and then we got the shock mount right there. So I'm gonna paint all of this real quick right here. There's one side on the underside I'm not gonna paint. I can actually show you that right here, because I have right there, we got to weld in a new exhaust hanger right here. So I'm not going to paint that part right there. I'll paint that when that actually gets in the truck. But most of the stuff is really, I just want to paint like right here, all the spots right there, all the spots that you're not going to actually be able to get to when you paint it. So you can tell, man, this is some pretty good quality metal. I mean, I think this is actually a lot thicker than the factory. So I'm going to clean this all up. I'm going to paint this, and then we're going to get the old one out. All right, now that we grinded some a little bit off, I want to be able to cut these out so I can remove this, clean this whole inside of the frame rail so we can put the new one in. I actually have that all painted and ready to rock and roll. So what we're going to do is actually we're going to remove the rear bumper, and then we're going to remove the rear hitch as well. We only need to remove the rear bumper to get this out. I'm going to remove the hitch because I want to make sure that I have this whole frame all nicely cleaned up before we paint the whole thing. So let's get that all squared away. Alright, now if you have the box on, it's going to be a little bit more difficult just because you're going to be all tight spaced here, but there's going to be a module sitting right here. What you're going to want to do is disconnect the brown, or the brown orange one, however you would call that, and the black one off. That's going to be for your rear sensors and your lights for the actual bumper itself. If you have the tailgate and the box still on, I would remove the rear camera one, which is already gone. We have that on our box already over there. So make sure you remove those before you do anything. Also, you're going to want to remove the trailer white harness. So it just pinches in and pulls right out. It's very simple. So let's move on to the next step. All right, next we're going to remove these two bolts right here. They are 21 millimeter, and once you get those out, they look like studs, but they're really not. It's actually just a bracket here. So we'll get those out on both sides. Alright, next we're going to remove this bolt. I'll show you what it looks like underneath. If you have the factory bumper, this is going to be a 19 millimeter for the nut and the bolt itself. If you have one of the Kurtz one like that I do, it'll be a 21 millimeter up top, or sorry, 24 millimeter up top, and it'll be a 21 millimeter for the bolts. If you also have the factory harness, or I'm sorry, the factory bumper, there's going to be 2 bolts right here that you have to come in from the side that are actually into the bumper itself, but since how I got the aftermarket one, it doesn't do that. And then let me show you the bottom here, and here's the bolt from the bottom here. So that's the hitch, and this is your bumper. It's right on there. Like I said, it's a lot easier to actually see it when you're not underneath, or when you have the box on. And then here's the one for the other side. All right, let's get those out. All right, now we're gonna do the other side. And if you're like me, you gotta work alone by yourself a lot, you can also use a wrench to put on that nut and back it right out. If you want to use, if you don't have 224 millimeters, 15/16 works just fine. And then butt it up to that, drive the bolt from down there. I take that back. This is actually a welded on nut right on a thing. I forgot when I replaced this hitch, I had to cut this one off, so I needed the wrench for that one. But if you got the factory one, not a big deal. You can just back the bolt right out. Next, we're gonna pull this one out, 15 millimeter. All right, now that those are all, like I said, it's a lot easier with this box off, but as you can see, now we should be all loose. Let's pull the whole thing out. Man, that is pretty dang rusty. I want to get a new back bumper when I lift this truck, so we're gonna get new brackets when we do that. So we're gonna get that all cleaned off because that's gonna look pretty nice. Next, let's finish getting this hitch off. All right, now like I said, because I have the curt hitch, we're gonna have to back out those 2 bolts right there. Those are a 22 millimeter. If you have the factory one, you're actually only gonna take out just this one right here because it doesn't go that far. There's only a bolt there, the bolt right here that we already took out, and then the 2 in the bumper, and then the 2 on the other side. So I'm gonna take those out off camera. We'll get this hitch out. All right, now that that's out, that was actually pretty rusty. I don't really like how rusty these things are, but well, maybe we'll replace those before we put that back in there. We got the bumper right there, the hitch right there. Now it's time to take this thing out. Now for your spare tire, I'm gonna leave that in because it doesn't actually move at all anymore. Michigan does a solid on these things. I can't get it doing. It just sits there and spins. I know this is the plate that actually goes in there, but it does just sit there and spin. So I'm gonna leave it all in. So if you do want to pull it out, you'll have to remove that bolt right there, and I believe that is a 15 millimeter. And then it should just come right out. It'll come right in. It'll go in right here. I'll remove this while I'm out of the truck just so I can see what I'm looking at, but I'm just gonna leave it in the truck for right now. So first thing we're gonna do, remove the shock, 21 millimeter both sides. I'm actually gonna remove it completely. So we got 21 millimeter down there. Let's back those out. All right, now the fun part, we gotta get all these factory rivets out. So we got one here, we got one there, we got one right there, one right there, one right there. There is one right here. I'll show you here on the bottom side. So it's right there. And then we got another one over here, which is that one right there. And that is, which one is it? That is this guy right here. So we got to do that on both sides. Not going to be a lot of fun, but we'll get after it. You can drill them out, grind them out, whatever the case may be. You basically just got to make them flush right here, and then they'll pound right out. I have new bolts that came with the new kit, so let's get these things out. All right, we got most of them out over here. Actually, we got them all out besides just that one, and it's said to be kind of a difficult one just because of the angles, but the best thing I can do, it looks like I scratched the frame up a little bit, which I don't like, but we'll clean that all up. Best way it looks like it's going to do is just using a grinder on it, and then using a Sawzall, cutting across the whole thing. And then if you can actually drill it out, that would be a really good option too, especially for these top ones, but you can hit those with the grinder really easy. I drilled this one out, which was actually a lot easier with the drill. This is our last one here, and then I've started working on a couple of those other ones just out of frustration. So we're going to get them all out of there. They're just really hard angles to get out of there, so you got to be patient if you want to drill this thing out. All right, they are all out. It's 8 on each side. These are the rivets. These are quite intense. It took a little bit of a minute. So theoretically, this thing should pound right out. Let's get it. Now I know it's going to be time-lapse, but that was 3.5 minutes of swinging a 4-pound sledgehammer, and I'm winded. I must be a total weakling. But here it is. Yeah, this will be nice and good and clean. The thing is just getting faster and faster every time I pound on this thing. Getting lighter and lighter is what I actually mean by it. So here's the old one. It's actually nowhere near as heavy as the new one, so this frame's going to be nice and solid when we're all squared away. So I'm going to grind this whole thing all nice and clean, get it all ready to paint, and then we're going to install the old one that is over there. It's actually already completely painted besides the bottom half, because I'm going to paint that when I paint the whole frame of the truck, and then we'll be able to put everything back together. Well, that was a lot, but we got her done. Looks pretty good. There's some spots where there's some actual bare metal, and then there's some spots where it's all cleaned up, but there's a little bit of stuff. Supposedly the stuff that we're painting on, which is the Rust-Oleum Rust Reformer, that's going to be the first coat. That stuff you can paint straight on rust. I don't really know how good that is, but I still have to clean this off. I blew it all off, but I still got to clean it, so that's not too big of a deal. And then there's some really, really tight spots where I had to use the actual metal brush, which isn't too bad, really. I also even got under some of the frame down here as well, so we're going to paint everything all nice and pretty when she's all done. So I'm going to clean everything all off. I'm going to use some brake clean, and then I'm going to use some starting fluid right after that, and then I'm going to hand wipe it all off, and then I'm going to get some rubbing alcohol and clean that all off, and then that way everything should be paint ready. I'll give it a maybe half hour or so to actually physically dry while it actually warms up here in this garage, and then we'll start painting. Alright, first coat is actually done, minus that cross member, because not only did I forget about it, but I actually ran out of paint, but it looks pretty good so far for being just rattle canned. I'm okay with that. Well, we'll get some more paint. I was actually 2 cans of paint, so I thought 2 cans was going to do the whole thing. Just as a rust reformer, I wanted to do 2 coats, so looks like I'm going to need about 5 cans total, just to make sure we get everything. Like I said, I didn't get to do that cross member. I did parts of it, but not too much. And then here's the under frame too. So I did not get on the inside of the frame underneath the cab or the top, just because I think you have to remove the cab, but that'll be on a later day. I think this will just make it look pretty nice for the time being. Plus, like I said, we're already replacing the cross members, so it shouldn't be too bad. So here is the can of paint that we're using as our primer. It's Rust-Oleum's Rust Reformer. It's really good stuff. I've painted on a lot of actual stuff that has rusted in the past and has saved it, especially my doors here. For a while, for probably about 2 years, I actually sanded all the rust off these doors and hit them with that Rust Reformer. It looked really weird because I had black paint coming all the way up to here before I had the entire cab actually completely redone. So I like that stuff really well. And when we paint it, we're going to use Duplicolor's Rust Barrier. That stuff makes a very, very good finish, and I'll actually show you that here real quick. I've already painted this with the Rust Barrier. Now it's a little bit dirty from going in there, but that's okay. This stuff is very, very solid stuff. I really like it. Plus, it's a gloss black. It looks pretty nice. Like I said, this is dirty from grinding, but we'll clean that all off. And then just to prove how good it is, I had it on here for probably about a year now. And it's still really good, and none of the rust is coming through other than the fact that we're hitting that with that. Plus, all of the rust we took off of this is all on there. So that stuff is really good, really hardcore. It's very expensive. I think it was like $28, $30 a can, but it has done very well. So we got 4 cans of that, so hopefully that's going to be enough. Once this is all kind of primed up, if you will, you can use the rust reformer as a primer. Says that it's actually it's good to do that. So that's our plan. We're just going to kind of make everything black. We'll stop the rust with this, or we'll clean the rust off. We'll stop it with this, and we'll protect it with this. So I'm going to let this dry for 24 hours, and we'll hit it for some more. All right, next day, next coat. I'm really, really liking this so far. I'm very happy that I'm actually taking the time to do this. I do feel like I'm a little bit over my head, but that's not too big of a deal. I just muscling through it. I've never done anything like this before, so actually painting the rear diff. We'll see how that actually holds up. I have no intentions of actually doing it, but keeping it that way. So everything's starting to look really, really nice. This is going to be the last coat of the rust reformer slash the primer. Next is going to be the actual bar and chassis paint. So very excited about that. That's actually a gloss black. This is more of a flat, so it'll be pretty nice. Everything should be all good to go right after this. We're going to do one more day. It says to wait 24 hours before you actually land some good paint on there, so that's what we're going to do. Tomorrow we're going to put some of that chassis and bar paint on it. We're going to actually do this stuff first because I need this to dry so we can get to that cross member in on the rear, bolt it all in, and then we're going to do the second coat with everything all completely installed and kind of paint back up. I just wanted to protect this section here as well as I can. One thing I don't like is right in here. Get some light up in there, see if we can get everything all lined up. I don't know how far the paint's actually going inside of there, so I'm trying to paint as much as I can with a brand new can. I'll just hit there and kind of douse it and spray it around because I want all the metal to stay really nice and clean. So either way, let this beast dry. All right, now after rereading the instructions on this stuff right here, I can actually put in one coat and it says you can repaint the second coat after 5 minutes. So that's what I'm actually going to do, is I'm going to paint the whole thing real quick, and then I'm just going to go and repaint the whole thing a second time. And then I'm going to wait about 3 hours. We're going to put the cross member in, and then just in the back portion of it, anything that gets a little nicked and scratched and stuff like that, we'll repaint just that a little bit. We're going to wait 48 hours, it says, for its cure time, and then this thing should be ready to go back and get put back together. Now I really like this stuff, but I just want to give you guys a forewarning. If you do it, it continues to spray after even you stop. So, and the lower the can gets, the worse it goes. I mean, you could almost just sit here and I'm just, you know, tapping it and it's just spraying here. So you got to keep in mind, if you want to stop, you're gonna have to pull that thing up. But other than that, this stuff is going on really well. Oh my gosh, guys, this looks amazing. That stuff is super, super shiny, and it really went on thick. And it looks really, really good. Here's a picture with the light on it. So that's 2 coats on there. Got it all the way around, everywhere in there. Like I said, the only hiccup really is actually that paint itself. When it gets a little lower and lower, or it seems like the nozzle doesn't want to unclick itself. So this thing looks pretty sick. I'm really happy. All right, now we're gonna wait 48 hours. It says that it actually is dry to the touch in an hour, and then it can actually be handled in 3 hours, which means I think it's dry enough for it to actually kind of do some nicks and dinks. So I think that's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna wait for this thing for 48 hours, and then we're just gonna put that other cross member in there. And then it says you can actually paint after 5 minutes in between coats, so that should be perfectly awesome. And then you can actually repaint at any time. So that's what I think we're gonna do. We're gonna wait 48 hours. We're gonna put the other cross member in there, and then we're just gonna kind of hit the paint just a little bit over here, any scuff marks, kind of put everything all in. We'll bolt that thing all into place, and then we'll paint that as well. So it should looking pretty nice. I can't wait to get this box on and see how this looks. All right, here we go. This is the finished product. I really like it. This thing is in great shape now, at least with all the scale and rust, all that stuff off and nicely painted. I did forget one thing. When you do this, you're gonna have to actually cut these rivets out as well on both sides. So you'll have all 4 of the rivets that hold this thing on there. If you cut these 2 out, put the bolts in there, cut these 2 out, put the bolts in there, it shouldn't rock on you, which is what you want to do. Or you could stabilize your frame and make sure your axles don't move. Either way, I forgot to do that when I read the instructions. I read it, but I didn't understand it all the way, I guess. And you can't actually slide this thing in here with those rivets in there. So other than that, this thing is pristine. I really like it. Tomorrow we're going to probably put the 5th wheel hitch in there, but that'll be back over at my house, and we'll get that box on, get the bumper back in, the other bumper pull trailer hitch, and this truck will be ready to rock and roll. So I'm very, very happy with this. This thing is turning out very, very well. I like it. So all right, now that that's all put back together, this truck looks really, really good. I'm super excited that I did this. Here, let me show you guys a little bit close-up view. Just fresh from the car wash, cleaned it all up. Actually had a chance to clean the box, which I rarely ever clean. I mean, this thing looks beautiful. Even did the rear diff and the axle. It's just 1 coat, just kind of make it look as nice as it can. Not planning on restoring that whole thing. I might as well just buy something new. But as you can see, this thing does look pretty good. I do got to fix the box at some point in time, but that's functional, so I'm okay with that. And do got to get that fender squared away. But that's going to be a story for another day, as in both of the front fenders are starting to bubble. And I also want to get a new hood as well, but that's going to be, like I said, that's going to be down the road. And let me show you on this side here. So we'll get this thing all nicely restored. This one actually looks really bad. This was actually from the factory mud flaps, kind of rubbing on this and keeping all the water in. Then it came in there. And I'm really happy how that turned out. I'm sure that an actual body shop could have ripped that whole thing all apart and cleaned it all up, replaced all of the cross members, welded them all in, probably a lot faster and probably a lot better quality of work that I did. I did work pretty hard on that. However, I'm not a body guy, so mad respect for anybody in those industries. And I got all the parts from autorust.com. I'll leave the link in the description. I am not getting paid for them, but I do love how high quality they are, how strong that metal seems to be, and I do believe it's actually a little bit stronger than the factory ones, even though those were kind of rusting away and getting weak anyways. I got the B&W hitch from Amazon.com. I'll leave that link in the description as well. Then it ended up using 8 cans of the Rust Performer, 6 cans of the Rust Barrier to get everything all squared away. Various grinders, some sanding wheels, some sanding actually like cut off wheels type deals. We use these stuff at work as well. And then wire wheels themselves, both the ones that actually go into your drill and the ones that go into your grinder itself. The one that goes in your grinder actually works really well. It's just hard to get in there in some spots with the grinder head and all that kind of stuff. This worked really great once the scale was off to actually clean it all the way up. So, and then I got all of these from Amazon, so nice and easy, get it shipped to your house. That was a ton of work. And after adding everything all up, I think I had about 58 hours into it total, and my neighbor had about 9 hours in there helping me weld all that stuff in there. I don't want to tell you guys that to scare you, because the project is pretty big. I just want you guys to make an educated decision if you're going to want to tackle something like this. It was my very first time of doing anything like this, so I think almost 60 hours into this, plus my neighbor, so I guess we got almost 70 hours into this total. I don't think that's too bad. I don't do this every single day, and it turned out really well. I'm very happy with that. And like I said before, the fenders have to get addressed on all 4 of them. We will get those all squared away, but I'll leave a link in the description for all of the parts and the tools we use, as always. And if you like this type of content, don't forget to stop by our Instagram channel and our newly created Facebook page. Those are both Extraordinary Duramax. You can find them both on that platforms. Make sure you to like and subscribe to the channel. You don't want to miss anything out. Plus, it helps us get us up in the views. We are closing on 1,000 subscribers, which is really awesome. I want to get this stuff out as much as I can to help out as much people as I can. You know, DIY stuff is kind of difficult, and as long as you can learn how to do it yourself, I think you're better off. Either way, guys, I'm going to get out of here. Deuces.